All right, you guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of the Supercross strong arm restoration. Yeah, this is mainly anodizing video. So this has been in here for an hour and a half. Let me walk over here and grab my temp gun. Should be right around 70 degrees, hopefully. That's very nice. That's very nice. That's what you want to see after being in there for an hour and a half. It's 45 degrees outside the ambient temperature, so keeping it at 70, it's just, anyway. So we're good there. We're going to go ahead and turn it off. And earlier in the video, I was stressing about the wires. And just so you want to know what my fuss is those wires are only held on there by the pressure of the bend. So I know that the angle that I put them on there at will hold firmly. But like, if you pick it up at a cockeyed angle, that shit's just gonna pop right off the wire. Just right off it goes. There goes everything. So that's why I stress on the wire situation and having the tanks and all that. So we're going to go ahead and shut this down. I'm going to double check, make sure my green dye is sitting at 140 degrees. Usually steam just like that means you're right on the money or close to it. 145. We're right on the nuts, dude. All right, so here we go then. That's solid. All right, let's see. We're gonna go ahead and shut this show down here. Turned all that off. And we do have distilled water right here. So we're gonna drop it into distilled water, and then I'm gonna move the tank of distilled water over to the part, and then I'm going to put it in there because the swinging motion of the parts in the air from here to there could pop off and drop. And just so you know, this is how you're supposed to do it. You get yourself one of these really effing expensive new waves, and they got the little thermal induction poker, and you get you get these pots that you can thermally induct on. It's $55 for one of these, and this is only like 4 gallons, and then this is like a couple $100. But then you look how many you have to have. You got to have one for the dye. You got to have one for the stripper tank. This has to be just under boiling, 200 degrees. This has to stay at 140. You got to keep these temperatures. This is a lot. There's over 5 gallons in these. In order to power one of these, the average home can't handle that. These things pump out over 1,500 watts on their low setting. So 1,500, 3,000 watts, you're pumping 4,000 watts, you'll blow all the circuits in your house. And a 5,000 watt generator will not push both of these pots at one time. So you gotta hook up multiple generators. The only way it's worth it to do it the correct way is if you're stream running parts all day long and you need to keep these things. Otherwise, it's easier to use a flame and adjust it and just accordingly. So that's why I'm using fire, because it's a big area I'm dealing with. Right on. So we're gonna go ahead and disconnect these. Hey. Pull that guy off of there. Make sure nothing's gonna hem up this process. I'm gonna actually turn this off and use 2 hands. So just so you see the step, we did successfully make this into the bucket. And I'm going to move the whole bucket over here. That way they're not swinging, right? Because the water will stop them from swinging too much. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and use 2 hands again. I'm gonna put them in this green dye. Hold on one second. I just want to show you something here. I noticed while it's hanging in this water. See those spots right there? I am not sure what that is. I do not know what that is. That's something I haven't seen. So you can see the old blue anodizing left over from the original color, because obviously you can't sand in the threads, right? But those little light spots right there are really making me nervous. So we're gonna find out. Shit. So we did get it into the green. This is the first. I have not looked. It's only been in there for 2 seconds, but if it did anodize correctly, it should have some kind of absorption already. There should be at least some kind of color on the parts. Yes. Got color, boys. Yeah, it took color all right. Green and gold are, I don't care what anybody says, are the two hardest colors to do because they're such a light transparent color that, like, if your anodizing isn't at the perfect temperature for the perfect time, it won't take an even coat. It just won't take. It's very crazy. So to see that level of saturation that fast means we got a great layer on there. I mean, we're going real dark green because gentleman has a pair of Kruppe platform pedals, the only set in the world as beautiful as they are, and they're the same color green, so we're going to make those match. 15 minutes is going to be full saturation, and then I'll be able to pull the part out and actually look at it and see if those spots affected anything. The reason I can't do that now is because the 3 seconds that's out of that hot liquid, it'll evaporate on the part, and it'll leave smut lines in the drying from the 140 degrees to the 45 degrees evaporates instantaneously and leaves a layer behind it of smut. So I can't actually look at the part in this environment until at least I'm ready to pull it out, and that's kind of the mystery here. So I will see you in 2 seconds because you don't gotta wait for shit, but I gotta sit here and smoke 3 cigarettes in 15 minutes and wonder if the last 2 days of my life has been a waste. So I'm just going to do a quick show just to show you how quickly the color absorbs. It's been 45 seconds, just so you know. I'm also impatient, and I'm very curious. You can see I'm starting to turn to that antifreeze green. That's probably about the color they came factory right there. So you could stop if you want at any given point in this process. That's 2 minutes in at the most, right? But we're going to run it for a full 15 because the pedals that I did were run at the full saturation. To be fair, that's a hot color right there. I did a Kruppe chain ring just the other day, and I used that color. I was doing a test, and that was that color. But we're gonna fuck, what the hell got it? Jeez. What the heck was that? I just inhaled like a piece of lint or a fly or something flew in my gullet. See you in a few minutes for the rest of this. Alright, you guys, we're a solid 5-8 minutes into this. I really should be keeping track with a clock, but I see color. That's so stupid to say, but it's true. I'm gauging it off the color, and they're looking sweets. We got good parts, dog. We got real good parts here. We're looking good. See one little part. See, I'm peeking. I'm trying to peek without drying them out. You shouldn't be doing this, but I'm so curious. This is killing me inside. Ah, I see a light spot right there. Fuck. Let me get off camera and look at this a little better. All right, we're gonna let this sit. There is a little light spot there, but we're gonna find out how it looks once it's sealed. I'm assuming that's going to be because there's a little air pocket or something in there when I was anodizing based on the shape of the cranks. So once this thing gets up to boiling, just below boiling, we'll go ahead and drop them in there. Right on. So we got really deep green. I think we're good on color. We're just gonna wait for this thing to get up to temperature in a couple minutes. And there is a light spot on there I've seen, and the only thing I can think of is the way the part was hanging, where that light spot is. It's on the lip, under that lip. So there must have been a little bit of grease still in the pedal spindle where the pedal screws in and that thread's there. The grease must have ran up the part and then got stuck in a little air bubble right under that lip. And that caused a little grease bubble to be there, which prevented the anodized color from taking. So if you notice that on a part, sometimes you can get in there and spray it out real quick while it's in this with the distilled water on a spray, and it'll accept a little bit of color still. But if the rest of the parts weren't great, then that would be an iffy scenario in terms of is it good enough to sell or not. My thoughts on it are going to be, as long as that's not the drive side, I think it'll be acceptable, because something that you might not realize is this part was anodized originally blue. You know what I mean? By the company. They had it sent out anodized. And somebody stripped it, and then I got it, and then I just now anodized it again. That means it's been anodized 2 times. Which, every time you anodize a part, it deteriorates the quality of the metal. It gets a little bit less and less and less beautiful every single time you anodize it. I won't try to run a part more than 3 times. After the 3rd time, it's done. If it doesn't work the 3rd time, I won't ever run it. This is the 2nd time because somebody else anodized it once already. So I'm not willing to risk degrading the metal. This is it's got to be 30-year-old piece of aluminum, and who even knows what kind of aluminum it is. So I'm not going to risk making this part damaged forever. And here we go real quick. If you're going to do this yourself, you should be dunking this from here into distilled water and then into the sealer tank. But I don't care. I'm willing to contaminate my sealer in order to make sure I don't drop this part in the next step, because I'm so close to being done. So you should be using distilled water in between this to save your chemical from being contaminated. And then it's got a hard layer of ano, so you don't got to worry about getting it nicked or scratched or scuffed while you're putting from this point. It's about as strong as it's going to be. The surface area is very tough. All right, so we got those in there. We're going to let them sit in there for 15 minutes, seal it up at 190 degrees, and then they'll go straight into distilled water, and then I'll wipe them down with a towel covered in WD-40, and the WD-40 or mineral oil, whatever you have, and that will make this glossy and shiny and prevent a layer of smut from forming on the part. So we'll do all that in a second. But I think we got decent parts. I'm actually not that happy, but like it's better than it could have been. So sometimes you just got to accept what it is and make a judgment call. And I don't feel comfortable redoing these cranks on a 3rd anodizing because of how old they are. This thing's been in here for a good spell. By the book, it says you only need to do it for 5 minutes. But like if you're ever double anodizing, you want to make sure it's sealed so it doesn't leak out when you do your next anodizing color. So I just do 15 minutes flat on everything. 15-20 minutes. And you see, since it doesn't matter, remember I sacrificed this fluid by contaminating it with green dye from the green tank. That's why I didn't fill it up all the way. And that's why the wires, I left enough so I can grab the wires and put it into the fucking distilled water instantly without having to fumble around in there and burn my hands trying to find the fucking wires, or grab it with metal tongs and it slips out and then you fumble it and then you have a bigger mess. But at the same time, if I was to waste that, that's 10, 15, that's probably 10, 12, 15 bucks in fluid and sealer. So like there's ways to do it efficiently, because it doesn't matter if it's touching in here. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move this bucket of distilled water closer. And when I get everything situated more, I won't have to do this anymore. This is just temporary, and you want to go in there as fast as humanly possible. You don't even want to look at the part. Just fucking do it. By the time you look at that part, it's been it's been out of the water too long. Yeah, boys, we got good parts here. That's a real beautiful green. That shit's sexy. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some WD-40 and I'm gonna put it on a yeah, I just dropped that on the other crank arm. You know why? Because that anodized surface is so thick you could slide that thing down the concrete and it wouldn't scratch it. I'm serious. At this point, that's a hard anodized surface. Well, technically it's not hard anodized in quotation marks. That's a different process. But that shit's tough. That's tough as nails. That ain't gonna scratch. Or that ain't gonna wear off. Anyway, I'm gonna get the WD-40 rag together. I'll wipe them down and I'll kind of show you what we're actually working with and see how bad that little light spot really turned out to be. Right on, you guys. So this is what we ended up with here. Yeah, we did actually get a little bit of a light spot. You see that thing right there in the corner? You couldn't see it from there, you know, but you can see it from there. But I think, you know, when you step back, the way if it's gonna sit, it's gonna sit like that. I think it's gonna swing. I don't like to send a part out or even consider sending a part out if it ain't 80% or better. If it wasn't for that part, man, and that little piece, we'd be looking at some absolutely gorgeous cranks. I'm gonna put my cigarette down so I can do this. You know, I mean, they're beautiful, bro. See that in there? You see the little, that right in there, that little color? That is the smut that I'm referring to. If you don't hit this right away with WD-40 on a rag, mineral oil, when it comes out of that, that's what you get, the whole part. It's covered like that. Obviously, the rag doesn't get in there with WD-40, right? So that's why it's still in there. It doesn't get in the grooves of that 180, and that's why you see it still in there. That's what it does. Let's look at this part, though. See, you see there, I didn't sand those out right there, obviously, those little, because there's a tolerance there. I didn't want to accidentally, you know, pitch it sideways when I was sanding it and have it loose on the, so I just left it alone. And you can see, you have to remove all dings and dents, or that's what you get. But we're not focused on the bad here. I think we should look at this part for what it is, and I think it's a good part, man. I see a couple little spots I'm not too impressed with, but overall, man, I think I'll wipe some of this stuff off still. Yeah, so I think it'll fly. The reason I think it's gonna work because this isn't the drive side. If this was the drive side, it would be an absolute no-go. They would be an absolute go. There would be no way. I wouldn't even consider sending it. But based on the part, what it is, what we got, and the fact that we really can't run it another time, I think that's absolutely a gorgeous set of cranks. And I think dude's gonna be happy. I would be. Look at that gloss. Killer color. Of course, we're in artificial light, so you take that thing out in the sun and it becomes 3D. Yeah, I think we're good. Right on. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Maybe you check out my channel. We'll do some other stuff. We'll make some T1000s or something. All right, check it out. Take care.